Welcome to Philly Fortune Talks with your host, Jake Penny, where the city's brightest minds share the secrets behind their success. Are you ready to be inspired?
Today we have a special guest on, Liz Gillespie, a dynamic workforce solutions consultant leader with over a decade of experience in people and change management. Liz is on a mission to advocate for DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies with the workforce, driving impactful changes and fostering inclusive environments. Today, I'm happy to have her on, and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Nice to be
So,
here, and I'm looking forward to the talk.
so tell us a little about yourself, what your business is, and how you're helping, solve this issue in the workforce.
Yeah, no, thanks again. So, kind of an interesting background. We all have an interesting one, right? So I initially started my career in advertising and marketing, and actually moved to Chicago for a little bit, lived there for about 2 years, and missed Philly a lot. I missed my family, so moved back home, stayed in the advertising and marketing industry, and that was around '07, '08. Really tough time for that
Mm.
industry, and was laid off. And I didn't know what that meant. I thought I got fired. I didn't know what happened. And learning about that time and the recession of that, just timing in the market, I went to a staffing firm and was looking for any job, frankly. I would have taken anything. And my brother was in the recruiting industry at that time, and he loved it. And this firm hired me internally. I became a business development manager, and that really catapulted my recruiting and staffing background. And from there, I've held many roles within that industry, anywhere from account management to operations director, people management, strategic, planning, change management, you name it. I've really, for the past 10 years, have been really all into staffing and hiring, and really aligning myself with organizations that had that passion. Um, then, obviously, I feel like everyone has and then COVID hit, right? So this is my, and then COVID hit. Additionally, I had a baby during COVID, at the height of COVID. And I had been with an organization for about, 7 years at that point, and working from home. And it's funny, people say, oh, I work from home. And I'm like, no, you manage your house and you work, right? Because people think it's just, oh, we're working from home. It's so easy. It is so hard to do both. So at that time, I was underwater, new baby, managing 6 programs, really within a leadership perspective, managing about 12 to 15 people. It was a lot. So really had to look inside myself, really had to take a deep dive and say, can I do this? Can I do all of this? And the
Mm.
answer was no. So I left my job at that point and decided to focus on raising my son. My husband thought I was crazy, and I did too. It's scary, but in that, I found, during that time of mothering and just all this newness, I found such a gap within um, the corporate workforce around maternity leave and how to navigate that. So to back up, when I was going out on maternity leave, it was, and this isn't to bash anything, this is really, every organization is struggling with this right now. It was, Liz, what's your plan? I'm like, what do you mean, what's my plan? It's, well, you're going to create your maternity leave plan. I'm like, okay. So I created a plan. I identified someone to, be my backup, and off I went, had my son, and came back after my leave, and it was as if I never left. And that was what hit me so hard, that the lack of planning and the lack of preparation that I even, wasn't aware of, I found to be such a gap in my transition back. So during this time when I was kind of reflecting on, where I want to be in, my career path, it was helping that gap, right? Filling in for other mothers, ensuring that, I didn't want anyone to feel the way I felt, where it was like, oh, Liz is back. Here we go. Nothing happened. And like scientifically, your brain's completely rewired. Like
Mhm.
it's been proven after you have a baby, just neurologically, that you're just a different person. And so taking that and identifying, okay, we have a gap here in our industry. How can I help other mothers ensure that they feel really confident going back to work? Um, I am not a licensed psychologist, therapist, anything that way. I'm just really taking it from my own experience as to, you know, how can I help other moms? And what happened from a local group really stemmed into, okay, now I'm realizing hiring managers have no clue how to set people up for success. So this then kind of waterfalled into, um, how can we put together true operational plans to ensure that, we're talking about, retention percentages, excuse me, making sure these moms actually come back to work, because that would affect a lot as well.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of rambling here, but that's what brought up Binkies to Business, and a local mom support group that with my corporate background really stemmed into this full on kind of mission, if you will. Had no intention of excuse me, it being that, but the more I talked to other moms, the more it was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Again, not saying I have all the answers, but I do have an operational background that can align to, devising these personalized plans for mothers.
Yeah, and from what I've heard and seen is that a lot of mothers coming back from having a child are just thrown back into the workplace. It-
Totally.
It's either that they have little time to transition back, like they only get a couple weeks with their newborn child,
Yeah.
or it's like they get a lot of time and the transition is, so distant as in getting back into the grind of work. So it's
Yeah.
definitely it's really, really needed because the corporate world, I feel, lacks, anything that helps.
Right. It's this fear factor, right? Like if you're in a team and it's like, oh, Becky's going out and everybody's like, what? Like who's gonna, it's this fear of the gap in that work that somebody else is gonna have to do it, right? And then the manager of that team's like, I have to figure out who's gonna do this. Do I hire? Is it in our budget? So there's all this swirling fear that's just really unnecessary. It really comes down to strong communication, strong expectation setting, and really that discussion. And where I find we could talk about it, right? Like I could go into a room and talk about this all day, but what are we actually putting in to organizations from an HR perspective that it's now in their handbook that, hey, we actually have a foundation or a template to say if you choose, if that's in your lifestyle to take a family leave from that perspective, we are ready for them. And
Mhm.
I think that's also a selling point for organizations to market. Um, so that kind of coincides to, right now, not to throw like data, but just from an unemployment perspective, it's like, I think it's like 7.2 million people looking for a job. I can tell you first time mothers would tend to veer towards the company that has that in place versus the company that doesn't,
For sure.
right? Or not even first time mothers, anyone who's thinking of having a child. So there's all these avenues that you can kind of get into to help. And that ultimately is my goal. Again, not having all the answers at the moment, kind of navigating my own way here, but having been through it, I think that's the best experience you can have. So
For sure. It's not textbook, it's real life.
right,
You
right. I
you
did not go to school for this.
you had life of hard knocks, teach
That's
you.
right. That's right.
So, with your over a decade of experience in, workforce solution, people management, can you kind of take us through, for instance, the job market has been call it an emotional roller coaster for some
Whew.
over that
Yeah,
past decade. Great highs,
yeah.
super lows. How have you helped people navigate that and, kind of be the solution for them and get them into the right workplace over time?
It is so hard right now. So if anyone's listening to this who's unemployed and actively looking, and I have been there, and just empathy all day for that. But to answer your question, I really, again, I never want to come across as I have all the answers and this is exactly what you should do. And it's not, because it's such a personal journey. It's such a personal um, process that I really try to get to know that individual and really understand their goals. In fact, this week, or no, last Friday, I had probably 3 conversations with people looking, just from reaching out on LinkedIn and just networking and talking. And again, I think we're lacking the interconnectedness like you and I are doing, where it's no one's really talking. People are sending emails and, you know, doing all this stuff from home, and no one's really connecting. So it's that interpersonal, let's have a phone conversation, let's meet for coffee and get to know each other.
Hmm.
And you literally never know who you network with, get to know, who might know of an opening for you. Um, I'm very into this brings me such joy when I connect with someone. I have no idea who they are and they need help, and I get to know them. I understand what they're looking for. And then I start to see job boards, I start to see openings, and I start sending them, hey, this might be of interest, this might not be. And then they find something and they're like, Liz, this was awesome. I called so and so and it worked. And I'm like, and I didn't get paid a dime for that. And that's okay. Like that's what brings me, do you know what I mean? Now, sometimes it should bring me a dime, but that's all right.
Yeah.
But how I really go about it in life is, it's not what can Liz get out of it. It's how can Liz give, right? And that's who I am. And I think that aligns nicely with, the organization I am employed with now. It's our culture is just all about that. And that's why I have a smile on my face today, because I'm just in a spot where I really enjoy what I'm doing. And that's where I try to get people. You really just want to enjoy what you're doing. And it sounds so cliche and so simple, but it is out there. You have to stay vigilant. You have to stay genuine. Um, I can I can see a mile away when someone's just un like natural, trying to get a job, and it never works. It never works.
Yeah, they might be like sitting behind a desk all day, just sending endless, uh,
Right.
job applications, stuff like that, instead of getting in front of
Right.
a real person and having a true conversation.
That's right. And like, again, all of this sounds super like cliche, but it's, look for those networking events, maybe ones that are out of your comfort zone, or, even calling your family. Sometimes people don't tell their family, like, hey, I'm looking, or, it's again, it's very personal. It's almost like, for me, it's showing a vulnerable side that is okay. Like I said, 7.2 million people are in the same seat. So it's the more we talk, the more we share, I think the better. On the flip side of it, though, for hiring managers who are looking, I really try to emphasize, um, being open to just beyond the resume, being open to different backgrounds. And, a lot of my experiences, we receive a job description and we have to get it exactly right. They have to have this and this and that, sometimes, I've seen where they have none of that and the person gets trained and they've been there for 10 years. So it's, just to kind of stress that, open up our minds a little bit as hiring managers to someone that might not look like an exact fit, but have that conversation, give them that chance to prove how they could fit in the role.
Yeah, definitely give yourself a chance to fit in the role
Yeah,
for sure.
right.
You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's not
There you
about what
go.
you know, it's about who you know. So getting out there
Right.
and network. Like this morning, I had 5 cold meetings,
Mm.
three in Manayunk, two in Mainline.
Oh,
Didn't know.
nice. You're down the street from me.
Sa-
I'm in
sa-
Roxborough.
Oh, okay. I actually
Yeah.
live in Delaware now, but I had a meeting early, 7 o'clock
Oh,
in
gosh.
Manayunk.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, just getting out there, getting to know
Get out
people.
there.
You never know
Right.
who they could connect you to.
That's right. But make it genuine, right?
Yep,
And it's not like, don't waste someone's time. Like, that sounds
for
super
sure.
harsh, but like, seriously, like, don't. Like, be cognizant of someone's time. And, you know, even if nothing comes from it, they took that time to meet with you. And nowadays, that's so rare,
Yeah,
you
without a
know?
doubt.
Yeah.
What are some like key strategies you have found effective in like driving successful workforce solutions and implementing change management?
Mm. So, not, so the Fortune 500 companies I have supported strategic initiatives for, they're very complicated. There's typically a lot of cooks in the kitchen. There's typically a lot of initiatives, right? And I'm being very honest, but careful here. But have a plan, write it down every meeting. I know it sounds silly, and I think now on like Teams you can record everything. Have it have it written down because you're going to forget what everyone said. But also remain true to the goal. Remain true, whether it be okay for this year, we want to improve our negative attrition. So, what are the areas that we're going to do that in and stay true to it and align real examples and real actionable strategies, not just fluff. You tend to see a lot of fluff in strategic meetings, and that's something when I see that I try to get really specific. So in guiding people, like, okay, you just had that thought, how can we actually put it into action? So just guiding thoughts that way is something that I really like to do, and I'm very big on clarifying. I may annoy some people, but I like to be really clear on what I heard. If I've learned anything, it's try to be a better listener in
Mm.
everything I do. I really struggled with that early on in my career because I was so eager to jump in that I was missing the message. So to answer your question, really listening is so important, and documenting is so important when you're in those strategic type meetings. Um, and make sure you have a team who wants to be there, right? Make sure you have the team is everything. There's definitely no I in team there. So that would definitely be one recommendation I'd have as well.
Speaking of like a team, when guiding a team through change, what leadership principles do you prioritize to ensure like a smooth and effective transition?
Honesty, honesty. It is so important. I have, having been on a team where changes occurred and not as the leader, you can tell when it's not honest and you're like, well, what's really going on? What's happening? I'm very honest with any changes that occur, obviously to a point. that I can share, but I'm as honest as possible. And I'm myself. I'm very true. If it, say a major change happens, I'll call people directly. I'll do a Zoom. I rarely do it in a group setting. Um, you know, I'm very empathetic to how someone may feel, despite how I feel.
Mm.
It may affect them differently. It may bring on fear for them. It may bring up all these sort of type concerns, which is natural. But again, going back to the listening perspective, it's, obviously delivering an honest message, but also taking the time to listen to how that person actually is understanding and retaining what is changing. So really coming from an honest and empathetic perspective, having had been in their seat at one point, or just wanting to ensure that they feel secure. I think
So
too, go ahead.
no, sorry about that.
There's a phrase, it's called like psychological safety, and I try to give that to any team I'm leading, that, and that's not all, everything's roses and unicorns all the time. It's just they know when I give a message that it's going to be a real one and an honest one. So promoting that psychological safety is important.
So being a leader like yourself and also being on the other side of you being in their shoes, how do you foster like an inclusive environment where all voices are heard and valued?
Mm, yeah. Again, another kind of cliche here, but like, and a lot of managers say it like, oh, open door policy, call me whenever you want. And you do, and they're like, I gotta call you back. Like, can't talk, I am not like that. It's I don't like titles. I don't like saying managing people. I don't operate that way. I've grown up playing sports. I think sports is such a good foundation for um life. I think being on a team, regardless of what you're called, is, important. However, being, a manager of people and a leader, you have to lead them. And I think leading by example and instilling trust, which takes time. Um, it's not that I don't want to give the impression where I manage people and they trust me immediately and everything's good. No, that's not it. It takes time. It's like anything. And you stumble and you go through things and you get to know them. But I would hope and have to say it would be true that if you talk to someone I manage, that they would agree that, they always felt comfortable to come to me.
That's definitely super important to have a
Yeah.
culture around your work environment where, people trust you, they know the vision, the purpose, what the bigger vision is for everything that you do.
Yeah.
So, in the ever-changing workplace environment, economy, everything, how do you stay ahead of trends and assure that your workforce solutions remain like innovative and relevant?
Mm, yeah. It sounds really silly, but what first came to mind is I have so many Google alerts. Like I read all the time about what is going on. And I know that sounds really weird, but and if you're not familiar, you can set up keywords and it's all this,
Yep.
it's really helpful because it will literally pull every article with that keyword. It's kind of, you have to get really specific so
I
it
have
doesn't send you everything.
I
Do
have
you
a
have
bunch
them?
of RS
Yeah.
feeds,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I might be like dating myself with Google alerts, but whatever. So I read a lot. I try to read as much as possible about my industry, about, the companies I'm supporting, and not to be a know-it-all, just to be in the know. So there's that. But I also really try to um, stay relevant and stay innovative and stay um, current. And, with AI and everything that's going on and everyone's talking about it, but it's to be careful to not make a complete judgment and decision and this is how it is. It's to flow with the process of evolving business and to give yourself like a little bit of grace in learning that, right? I think a lot of people might show up and be like, this is what we need to do and well, what if we didn't? And what if we did this? And so I try to be the devil's advocate sometimes, where it's like always questioning, is that the right idea, or is that the right move? So and not sitting there too long, but being open to not doing things the way you may have always done it. So trying to get as creative as possible.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned AI, and I think a lot of people get scared over that AI is going to take all your jobs and whatnot. I don't think
Yeah.
necessarily that's the thing. I think that
Yeah.
you can integrate AI into your workplace or to help with tasks and everything like that. I think truly it'll make you a better person. I think when like
Yeah.
robots get introduced,
Right.
then
Like,
it's like, oh, okay, that might, take a few jobs.
yeah, no, I think it's so industry specific, and not to kind of roll
Yeah,
into this, but I think everyone, from my perspective, there's so many awesome benefits that are coming and evolving, and really some cool stuff coming.
for
At
sure.
the same time, I can empathize with the fear factor of it. It's like it's just different. It's very different. It's like
Mhm.
nothing we've ever talked about. So naturally, I think in our brains we fear it
Right.
because we don't know enough right now. So that's kind of how I'm like, I don't know enough right now, and that's okay. But I know I like this part of it, right? So it's just kind of being kind to yourself, and if you want to be an expert in it, let me know, because I still don't have all the answers to it. So
Right, right. So Liz, as we look at the future, not that we have any crystal balls or anything like that. I
mhm.
know mine broke for sure.
Yeah, mine's
But
shot. Yeah.
what are your like long-term goals in the workforce solutions and DEI advocacy, and how do you plan to
Mm.
achieve them?
Mm. Woo. Well, um, continuing to push the envelope in terms of, finding these gaps that truly can help people. Again, going back to the point of, where people, the experience folks have in the workplace needs to be a happy one. Obviously, not all the time, but it needs to be a fair one, and it needs to be a cognizant and I didn't mean for this to rhyme, but aware one, right? Everyone needs to have their eyes like completely wide open to what's ahead, because it's only getting more competitive, only getting more intense from a need perspective, from products coming out, from marketing coming out, from the intensity is only picking up. So I really see myself still ingrained in kind of identifying, gaps and helping people from a staffing perspective. Um, but also, honestly, being the best mom I can be while doing that. It kind of all comes back to that, and being the best wife I can. And how do you juggle all of that? And I'm still learning that every day. But I really don't know where I see myself, to be honest with you, and that's okay. And that's kind of
Yeah,
where I'm okay with that, and that's kind of exciting to me.
yeah. I always, I find it funny when people ask like, "Oh, what's your 5 and 10 year plan?"
I know
You
I
can
don't
you
know
can
what I'm
have
doing tomorrow.
you can have like a little bit of a grasp of that, but
Sure,
every
sure,
day things change. Your 10
yeah,
plan, you're going to get there and be like, "Oh man, this doesn't
right.
look
Isn't it
anything
funny to
like
look
it."
back? It's so funny.
You
Yeah,
can
so
have all these.
just giving yourself the openness to change if you want to, and if you don't. And just always helping people is the name of my game. So hopefully, whatever that looks like, I hope to keep doing that.
Always coming from a serving heart, give
Yes,
more than you
yes,
can receive. At the end of the day, the law of reciprocity, the more you put out in the world, the more you give, the more you provide value, you only become, that much better.
that's
But
right.
what advice would you give for aspiring leaders to make a significant impact in the areas of like people management, workforce solutions, all that tough stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would I would not be afraid to receive feedback. This was a pivotal point in my people management timing when it was like my first year of managing people. And that's a critical time. If you want leadership, if that's your path, take the first year that you are doing that and ask for feedback from everyone. And it's really awkward. Well, it can be for somebody like, hey, can you give me feedback on me? And people are gonna be like, no, like go away. Or some people might be like, yeah, sit down, you did this, and it's constructive feedback. Um, take it all in. Take it all in. Whether you work with that person directly, whether they're in your organization, they may have noticed something that you can improve on, or they see things that you might not even realize that you're like kicking butt in that, you just didn't know. So my biggest piece of advice would be take the first year of your leadership role to soak it all in and take the feedback critically. And I will say too, if you're getting feedback and it's not constructive, throw it out.
Okay.
So that would be my advice.
I love the constructive feedback, criticism, and
Yeah,
whatnot. And the best thing to do is leave your guard down. Let it all let it
totally.
out.
Yep.
Keep the
You are
ego.
new. You are new to this
Check the ego at the door. Let whoever
for
it is.
sure.
If they have negative things to say, just take it in. Hopefully, it's you can learn from it. All the
Absolutely. And that's all it's about, learning and growing and evolving.
absolutely. So I have one more question for you,
Oh
kind of
boy.
putting you on the spotlight. So
Uh-huh.
reflecting on your career, what achievements are you most, proud of, and what has been like the lessons that have been most valuable to you?
Hmm. Well, I would have to say, looking back, it has been being promoted into that management role. Um, that gave me it was such a great foundation, and this organization's amazing. That I was able to learn so much in. Um, but that it was a hard interview too. Like a bunch of people were going for it, and we were all kind of at the same levels, and it was pretty competitive, and we're pretty young, so it was like, super competitive. So to be able to, like, when I got the offer, I was like, man, like I worked really hard for that, and it just felt right. So I think, that position and that time of my life really helped me understand what hard work was. And I didn't just get it because I, was available, and, they had to promote somebody. I was next in line. It was a true, they interviewed outside people. It was competitive. So, you know, not everything's going to just be handed to you. You have to work really hard. You have to show up, and I mean that in every sense of the definition. So, and going back to your question though, it would have to be that time, when I was promoted into that first people management role.
Okay, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
the what has been like the most valuable lesson that you've learned?
Ooh, the most valuable lesson. Oh, okay. So, and I feel like I'm full of cliches right now, but a former manager told me, and this has stuck with me in personal life, professional life, everywhere. What you fear is what you create. And
Mhm.
initially I was like, what the heck does that mean? Like, what are you talking about? You know? And the more I grew and the more I learned and just was involved, and how your mindset can really affect what is going on around you, and it could be something simple like, oh, you're really scared that this person on your team's going to leave. So you start acting like they're leaving,
Right.
and then they do. And it's like, oh my God, I created that to happen, however you want to see it. But That to me was so impactful. I stop myself sometimes when there is doubt or when there is concern that like, okay, Liz, get logical here. Let's, this hiring manager needs this. We need to really make sure this happens versus, I don't know if I can do this. Right. So it's that what you fear is what you create kind of mentality. And when he initially said it, I'm like, I have no clue what you're talking about. So now I do.
It's like fear, false evidence appearing real. And
Yes. Yes.
in the majority of the time, what we fear 90% of the time never even happens. And it's just more
Never.
like this false illusion that we have that's,
Right.
the land of make believe. It's just something that's
Right.
not going to happen.
Yes.
Well,
So
that's good. For listeners that want to connect with you, learn more about your work, what's the best place for them to go to?
yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as Liz Gillespie and would love to connect there. And please feel free to send me a note, however I can help. Like I said, I am not licensed or, have a certification in anything like that, but I definitely have the experience to help. So here if you need anything.
Awesome, Liz. It was a pleasure having you on Philly Fortune
Oh,
Talks.
you too. Thank you so much, Jake.
Thanks for tuning in to Philly Fortune Talks with Jake Penny. Inspired to share your success story? Visit phillyfortunetalks.com/guest and let's inspire together.